Sarah and I had been best friends since childhood. I'm pretty sure we were best friends in the womb, because our moms are both best friends too. You could say that Sarah was pretty much like a sister to me. We did everything together, and so it was only natural that we moved into the same town when we started working. Sarah wanted to be a jewelry designer, and I wanted to be a fashion stylist. We were in pretty similar fields, so we were able to pick a place to live that suited both of us fine. For a few months, things were great. We shared an apartment together, and my career was going pretty good. I had just been hired by a fashion company, and I was slowly working my way up the ladder. But I always felt like I was missing something, and by something, I mean a boyfriend. I was 20 years old at the time, and in all those years, I had never found a boyfriend. Some people might say that's embarrassing. I didn't mind that much, to be honest, but as my 21st birthday was coming around, I suddenly felt desperate to find a boyfriend. What if I never found a boyfriend and I ended up being single all my life? That could not happen. And so when I finally met Mike, I felt like all my dreams were coming true. Little did I know, nothing was as it seemed. But before I go on, please be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and you will become a millionaire in the next 5 years. Trust me, it really works. Sarah and I were out at a restaurant together for a meal. Sarah had gone to the bathroom, and I was just sitting there, when suddenly the most handsome guy I had ever seen walked into the restaurant. He seemed to be on his own, and he was wearing a nice suit. He made eye contact with me, and I smiled. I'm told I have quite the dazzling smile. The guy smiled back at me, and he walked off to his table. His table was opposite from me, so the whole time while I was talking to Sarah, I could see him looking over at me from his table. I'm pretty sure I looked like a tomato. I was blushing so much. Eventually, we got up to head out of the restaurant, and the guy stood up. He offered his hand, and I shook it. "Nice to meet you," he said. "I'm Mike." "I'm Kelly," I replied. "Listen, Kelly, I don't usually do this, but I think you're the prettiest girl in the whole restaurant. No offense," Mike said to Sarah, who shrugged. "Would you like to go on a date sometime?" Mike asked me. I couldn't believe this was happening. Fate had brought us together. I knew it. I immediately said yes, and we organized a time and date to meet up. Mike ended up taking me to a festival that weekend, and we had the time of our lives. I was so happy I had met him. Mike and I spent practically every weekend together. Sometimes Mike would come over to my apartment, or we'd go on a romantic dinner, or go to the park. It was so fun, and I was so glad I had found a boyfriend. The only problem was, Sarah just didn't seem to like him. Whenever Mike came over, Sarah would leave the apartment in a hurry and make an excuse. Eventually, I decided to confront her because I cared about Sarah, and I wanted to know what was wrong. "Sarah, is something wrong?" I asked one day. Sarah sighed. "No, it's nothing." "Nothing? Then how come every time Mike comes around, you always leave? And how come you don't ever want to hang out with Mike and me? Do you hate him or something?" "Kelly, it's just, I don't think Mike is a nice guy." "What do you mean?" "I don't know. There's just something about him. When you're not looking, I swear I can see like an evil glint in his eyes or something. It's creepy. And haven't you wondered where he's been getting all this money from?" "What money?" I asked, confused. "Kelly, he's rich. He takes you to the most expensive restaurants basically every night. Haven't you wondered where he got all this money?" "Look, he's not rich. He just likes to treat me. And why can't you just like him? Can't you see he's such a sweetheart?" "Kelly, you shouldn't date him anymore. He isn't right for you." I suddenly felt very angry. "Look, if you don't like him, then I don't think I can live with someone who hates my boyfriend." This time, Sarah looked angry. "Fine, I'll move out then. If you can't see the truth, then that's not my fault." Sarah stormed off and started packing up her things. Within a few hours, she had left, and I was there on my own. I couldn't believe what had just happened. I was shocked. But then I got a call from Mike telling me he was coming to pick me up, and I felt better. Who cared what Sarah thought? I loved Mike, and that was all that mattered. Sarah and I didn't speak for months. She seemed to have moved to a friend's place. I felt bad for what had happened, and I wanted things to go back to normal, but my stubborn mind wouldn't go over to Sarah and apologize for saying such mean things. And Mike was good at distracting me from my grief over Sarah, so that's how things went for a long time. Meanwhile, Mike was treating me to romantic dinners and trips overseas and nights in hotels. This was the life. I was starting to get curious about what Sarah had said too. Mike seemed to be rich. One day, I decided to ask him about it. "Mike, I can't help but notice that you keep spending so much money on me. You don't have to do this for me," I said. Mike smiled and put an arm around me. "Oh, pumpkin, I'll do anything for you. Besides, I have a lot of money to spare." "Really?" "Yeah." Sweetie, how do you have so much money?" At my question, Mike narrowed his eyes, and I felt very nervous all of a sudden. What I saw in his eyes made me scared. It appeared I had just witnessed that evil glint Sarah had spoken about, but then the look disappeared and Mike looked normal again. "Oh, nothing to worry about, honey. I've got it all sorted." He then changed the subject and asked me where I wanted to go on our next trip, and so I went along with him. I wasn't too bothered anyway. Who was I to complain? Things continued to be amazing. For our 6-month anniversary, Mike bought me a diamond necklace. I was so overwhelmed and I couldn't keep my eyes off of it. In that moment, I felt like I could truly marry Mike and spend the rest of my life with him. I had bought Mike a small teddy bear because that was all I could really afford, but Mike seemed to like it anyways. "I'll cherish it forever," he said with a smile. I wore the necklace every day. I felt so good because I could tell other women were looking at my necklace thinking, how on earth did she afford that? I liked gloating in front of other people. I guess that wasn't really nice of me. Anyway, one day I was walking through the shopping mall. I was using Mike's credit card to buy some clothes when I stumbled into someone and dropped all my things. "Hey, watch where you're going," I started, but then I froze. It was Sarah. "What are you doing here?" I blurted out. I'm shopping," she replied. She was carrying a few shopping bags too. We stared at each other for a few seconds, and then I started crying out of nowhere. "I missed you so much," I said. Sarah seemed stunned, but then she started crying too. "I miss you too." We hugged and made up, and things seemed to be normal again. Later on, we got coffee and caught up on all the time we lost. "I'll move back into our apartment," Sarah told me. I cleared my throat awkwardly. "Well, actually, I might be moving in with Mike soon." "Oh, right," said Sarah. There were a few seconds of awkward silence, but then I quickly changed the subject. "Look at the diamond necklace he got me." I showed her my necklace, and she smiled and said it was very pretty. But then she looked again and seemed concerned. "What is it?" I asked. This is a fake," replied Sarah. I laughed. "As if! Mike would never give me a fake necklace." "Kelly, I swear these are fake diamonds. See how they shine in the light? It's fake. I'm a jewelry designer. I know what I'm talking about." I was skeptical at first, but then I saw the serious look in her eye, and I knew she was telling the truth. "Fake?" I said, shocked. "Why would Mike get me a fake diamond necklace?" "I don't know," said Sarah. "Maybe you should ask Mike." "Yeah, I will," I replied. For the rest of the day, we hung out, and I found out that Sarah had been promoted to the head position at the company she was working for. I was so happy for her. I realized that I hadn't really done much in the time we had spent apart, except for hanging out with Mike and getting closer to him. My fashion styling career had basically gone down the drain because I was spending too much time with Mike, but I figured Mike would look after me financially, so I wasn't that bothered. When I got home, Mike was already there waiting for me. I immediately asked him about the necklace. "Mike, this necklace is fake," I said. Mike frowned. "What? It can't be." "Well, it is." "How do you know?" "Sarah told me." Well, maybe I got scammed. I'm sorry, sweetie. I'll buy you another one." "Oh, okay." Mike then went on to speak about something else, but I was concerned. And you know why? Because I could tell that Mike was lying. In our time together, I had discovered Mike had a tell for when he was lying. He would always touch his hair when he told a lie, and he had been doing that the whole time I asked him about the necklace. I was not convinced, but I didn't push it any further because I didn't want to make Mike angry. A week later, I was at home in bed when I got a text from Sarah. All she said was, "Emergency, come to this location, I need you, Sarah." She had attached her location. I was really worried. Was Sarah in trouble? Was she hurt? I texted her back, but she didn't say anything, just left me on red. I had no choice but to get up, get dressed, and drive over to the address she sent me. It was really dark, and I was feeling pretty spooked out. The address she sent me took me deep into this forest, down this long, winding road. I tried calling her multiple times, but she wasn't picking up. Eventually, I stopped the car as there was a dead end. A locked gate sat in front of me. I sat in the car, unsure what to do, when I heard a tapping on my window. I screamed, and a face pressed up against the glass, making me scream again. But, as it turned out, it was just Sarah. I calmed down when I realized it was her and not a serial killer, and I got out of the car. "Don't scare me like that," I said. "Why did you make me come here? What's wrong?" "Follow me," she said. I hated all this secrecy, but I followed her anyways. She took me round the side of the gate and the huge wall blocking our way into someone's house. We walked for a few minutes, and then she stopped at a ladder she had propped against the wall. "What's this?" I asked in alarm. "Come on," she said. "We can't just break into their house. It's private property," I exclaimed, but Sarah ignored me and climbed over the wall. I didn't know what to do, but I didn't want to stay on my own for too long, so I followed after her. I found myself in a garden next to a driveway. Sarah pulled me aside to hide behind a bush, and then she started to explain everything. "This is your boyfriend's house," she said. "What?" I cried out in alarm. The house was a mansion, and the property looked like it went on for miles and miles. He wasn't just rich, he was mega rich. "Shh, I brought you here because there's something I need to show you," said Sarah. "I've been doing some investigating into Mike, and I figured out how he's been making so much money." "How?" "He sells fake jewelry to companies, including my company." "What?" Kelly, he scams people. Look, see this truck driving in? I glanced over and saw a truck driving into the garage. Some people got out and started unloading boxes. He buys fake jewelry for really cheap and sells them for a much higher price. Wow, I whispered. Now do you believe me when I say he's sketchy? Asked Sarah. I sighed and nodded. I'm sorry I treated you so poorly, Sarah. I've been a real jerk. It's all right, but you have to do something about this. He's your boyfriend. You're right, I said. And I did. The next day, I asked Mike to come over to my house for a talk. He arrived, and I sat him down on my couch. I was so nervous, I kept fiddling with my pillows. Eventually, he asked what was going on, and that's when I fessed up. I know you're scamming people with fake jewelry, I burst out. Mike was speechless. What? Mike, you have to stop. This is wrong to scam people like this. You can't just do that, even if it does make you a lot of money. Mike hesitated, and then he looked down. I don't care. I'm gonna keep doing it. Mike, I said in shock. I'm gonna keep doing this, and there's nothing you can do about it. I froze. I was not expecting this. I thought Mike would apologize and immediately say he was wrong and he would stop scamming people, but he had done the exact opposite. And then I had a thought. Well, I won't tell anybody, but only if you give me commission each month, I said. Mike looked surprised, then, wait, really? Yes, 10% of the profits. Mike hesitated, then he smiled. Sure, deal. But you promise you won't tell anybody, right? I said I promised, and that was that. For a few days, things sort of returned to normal. Mike and I were fine. Sarah and I were fine. I had to tell Sarah that Mike said he would stop, even though that wasn't the case. And meanwhile, Mike had been filling my bank account with the commission, and boy, was it a lot of money. The amount I got in the first month equated to the same amount of money I had earned in an entire year. And that was only 10% of the real profit. I felt kinda guilty for scamming people and making money off of them, but I had to admit, I really loved the money. I loved the lifestyle, and so I kept quiet and agreed to the commission. Everything was perfect, but then my whole world came crashing down. Suddenly, the police burst into my apartment and they arrested me. When I got to the police station, I discovered they had arrested Mike as well. When I demanded to know what had happened, they told me someone under the name Sarah had called for our arrest for a jewelry scam. I couldn't believe it. My own best friend ratted me out. She must have seen through my lies and realized I was making money off of Mike's scams too. I am currently under arrest and I still need to go through trial. I guess I deserved what's coming for me, but the pain of Sarah's betrayal is still fresh in my heart. What would you have done in my situation? Please comment your thoughts below.